Through all of history, people have liked watching stuff happen, because stuff happening is cool. But it was hard for a while. If it wasn't right there, you couldn't see it. But then, everything changed. Cameras. They're pretty cool, and pretty helpful in that thing called watching stuff happen. Because with a camera, you don't have to be there, and Hollywood took that idea and ran with it. Literally. In modern classic Slumdog Millionaire, a unique effect was created by fitting a camera inside a backpack, hitting record, and literally running down the street, filming actors chasing behind. Tech so simple as a jog, making a scene far more dynamic. A constant in Hollywood for many decades is the movement of the camera. From the slow push into Citizen Kane's Rosebud, to Godzilla's awesome dropkick, to the camera choreography in surefire classics, such as Jared Leto's Morbius. The presence of camera movement is clear. It's near impossible to watch a sequence without camera movement, let alone a full film. When studying cinematography, camera movement is one of the most discussed parts, clearly one of the most important. Anyone can name a scene, or two, or three, that just wouldn't be as memorable or exciting without camera movement. But when should the camera be moved? Sometimes it's dictated solely by the scene, in the blocking, or even the practicality or time constraints on set. But far more than often, there is a real reason the camera is moved. An emotional beat, a reveal. The panning up in Arnold's badass Terminator, zooming straight into Chris's descent into the sunken place, following Danny through the halls of the Overlook. In short, a meaningful moment. Camera movement has an effect on the audience that can create or heighten emotions. Different types of camera movement can create wildly different effects. Just because movement is lateral doesn't mean the same thing every time. A whip pan will feel very different than a slow pan. So when analyzing camera movement, blanket statements can hardly be made. Beyond our very established, movement has meaning. So let's dive a little deeper. Where to start? Perhaps probably the most standard movement of all, plus among the most used, the pan. A camera pan is a horizontal movement leftwards or rightwards via the camera, pivoting from a singular point. It is generally used to either follow a character's horizontal movement, reveal new information, or show more of the scene or setting. Let's examine an example. Netflix's recent dark comedy, Do Revenge, features this sequence, where a pan tracks the two leads leftwards, down the sidewalk into a store. This serves a double purpose. In addition to dynamically following them through the scene, we get a greater sense of the environment itself than we would through static cuts. A unique type of pan is known as the whip pan, in which the camera pans horizontally so that the shot is briefly just a bunch of streaks. This heightens the pace, often raising the stakes, quite fitting for a mafia movie such as Casino. Next, let's pivot to talking about the tilt, which is the same pivoting motion but along the y-axis. That is to mean it is vertical movement of the camera upwards or downwards, again with the same camera staying fixed. Similar to pans, tilts excel at revealing new information, often about a character situated about the tilt itself, but also work well at showing scale. When in grand environments, think the Grand Canyon or Statue of Liberty, the human eye strays and slides up or down as a tilt emulates. A film which exemplifies this concept is Nolan's Oscar-winning Inception. This famous folding city scene uses tilts in relation to two people, then up to the sky and rising city, showing the grandeur and spectacular scale of such an epic event, which often has the effect of giving the viewers goosebumps. Third, let's examine a standard movement for the Z-axis, the push in and pull out. Push-ins happen when the camera physically approaches a subject, often whilst seated atop a dolly. One of the most versatile camera movements, the push-in, serves many purposes. When pushing into a character, it amplifies the emotion of the moment, regardless of what the emotion is. In this scene from Stranger Things, the push-in highlights crippling fear, whereas this clip shows Walter White's dominance and power, identical movement creating near opposite emotions. Push-ins similarly create extreme tension and anticipation. Push-ins are also effective even on less emotional beats, when pushing into non-humans. When pushing to an object, its importance is highlighted, and the audience is essentially forced to stare straight at it. In the exact opposite movement, pull-outs occur when the dolly takes the camera backwards along the z-axis away from the subject. Similarly to the pan mentioned earlier, they are great to reveal more of the scene or to show greater context to something already shown. They can also show intense feelings of isolation, abandonment, or loneliness, as demonstrated in this slight pullout from 2013's Gravity. Pullouts must be used carefully, as they can completely emotionally detach the audience from a character or situation. Similar to pushes and pulls are zooms, which are the same concept but without the physical movement of the camera. Rather, it zooms the frame in itself, in or out, typically via manipulation of the lens. However, it is sometimes done later in the edit room. This has extremely similar effects to pushes and pulls. Let's call them cousins in the world of filmmaking techniques. This makes them well suited to horror movies. The music video for MGMT's Little Dark Ages uses very frequent slow zooms, which creates an eerie effect. Zooms are also nice tools when it is absolutely imperative to draw attention to something, a concept taken to the extreme in Shaun of the Dead. This in particular is a crash zoom, an extremely quick zoom often used for comedic effect. One of the more popular niche camera effects is created by combining these last two techniques, pushes or pulls and zooms, creating a dolly zoom. By dollying out while the lens is zooming in, a unique effect is created, which excels at depicting chaos, grand consequences, or a moment of intense realization, among other things. Here, in Spielberg blockbuster Jaws, the dolly zoom is used when Chief Brody recognizes a shark is about to attack, epitomizing the aforementioned moments of intense realization. While movement along the X, Y, or Z is nice and all, they are far from a constraint. Action typically happens in several at once, fluidity between them all. So why shouldn't camera movement be the same? In fact, why not have the camera movement go right alongside the character themselves? Well, look no further than the tracking shot. Additionally, the term was reserved specifically for dolly shots following characters. However, today it is generally used for any shots that follow or track the action of the scene. Today, it is often via the Steadicam. They are very striking shots that can immerse the audience deeper into a scene or setting than anything else. This is particularly noticeable when tracking shots are used in oneers, a concept taken to the extreme here in Birdman, a movie shot and edited to seem like a single take. Even when shorter, tracking shots are notable. They tend to slow the pace, allowing the audience and characters alike to take in the moment as it unfolds, usually in real time. They can also greatly raise anticipation as we follow the character into the unknown. This scene from A Clockwork Orange lets us continually wonder what will happen when the nurse reaches the end of the hallway, an effect that cannot be achieved by any other motion. A unique and notable version of the tracking shot is known as a truck. It is specifically horizontal camera movement following horizontal character movement, as seen in this iconic shot from Wes Anderson's Moonrise Kingdom. A second type of tracking shot is the arc shot, in which the camera arcs or rotates around a subject, typically but not always horizontally. Often used to increase the feelings of action or dynamism, even in scenes with still blocking. It can also create intense focus on or about the subject. If the subject is several characters, as with the Avengers here, the arc shot also serves as an amazing way to unify them. While much of the time the camera stays near the ground, sometimes it needs to go up and down physically. This shot is known as a pedestal or boom shot. While most often used simply to shoot vertical action, it can also heighten the consequences by literally heightening the camera itself. One last type of shot to consider is the camera roll, in which the camera itself rotates spinning its world. Among the least used movements, its unusualness is jarring, which mirrors its effects on the audience. It will disorient, surprise, and at times even confuse people. The opening shot of Boogie Nights uses a large camera roll to set its turbulent mood from the first few frames. Something else to consider alongside how the camera is moving is how smooth it is moving. Cameras tend to move one of three ways nowadays: dollies, Steadicams, or handheld. Dollies and Steadicams look fairly similar on screen in some ways. They're both pretty smooth. Take the iconic Rakakuni chase scene, butterfly. But it's not the only technique. Shakier handheld shots have their effect. Contemporary slasher flick Freaky uses handheld techniques frequently to add the unease of the deadly situation. Any handheld scene will feel more chaotic, often with greater anticipation. This can be taken to the extreme via the found footage style, popularized by controversial 1999 film The Blair Witch Project. By placing the camera supposedly in the character's hands, it gets shakier, more chaotic, adding to the terrifying atmosphere. So we have a good few camera movements, but who's to put them in a queue? Make them come one by one, wait their turn. Much of the time, they are used together, either back to back, in separate shots, or even within the same shot. Take this fight scene from Alita, Battle Angel. It has consistent and rapid camera movement, but not just one or two types. We have pans, tilts, pushes, pedestals, tracking, and more. And they all add to the situation. They all serve their purpose. They follow the action, they make the scene more dynamic and more intense, highlighting both story and emotional moments. They slow in the emotional beats while speeding up for the action. We push in for realization, pan to establish more of the setting, pedestal up for heightening the action and emotion, all and more in the same 2 minutes. So, motion is good. It creates powerful effects, drives emotions, tells audiences what's important. So let's take it all away. It's true. Sometimes the most striking motion is the complete lack thereof. Static shots have their place too. One of the most classic building blocks of film. They appear in most movies, and for good reason. They are firm. Sometimes movement just doesn't work out. Just as it is important to know when to move the camera in what way, it is equally important to know when to not use movement at all. Sometimes, filmmakers choose to stay still to better highlight the movement of the characters in frame. Stillness has its own effect. Specifically, it can imply calmness, either in general or the eye of a hurricane. It can signal a pause or a reprieve, however brief, both for the audience or for the character and their emotions. And pauses can create intensity too, as in the climax of X, where cuts to a static shot drive up the stakes, tension, and anticipation, as all hell breaks free. While it may not be fully necessary to move the camera in a movie, it's hard to imagine situations that do not call for at least some doses of it. Not to mention its flexibility. Enough camera movement exists that it'd take a few hands worth of fingers to count them all, each with their own list of effects and countless applications. Where it shines, however, the meaningful moments using the right motion at the right time can take an emotional moment to the next level, subliminally telling the audience exactly how to feel. In short, camera movement is contextual, dramatic, chaotic, meaningful, emotional. From Sharknado to Casablanca, it is without any shadow of doubt one of the most important pieces in the lexicon of filmmaking. We as filmmakers exist to make people feel something, and camera movement does just that. So let's do something. Use some camera movement, so when people come to watch stuff happen, they feel something too. All in a flick of the wrist, or should I say, pan of the lens.